Life doesn't always give you unlimited opportunities. Most people live as if they'll have another shot, another tomorrow, another next time. But here's the truth. Every real transformation begins when you start treating this moment as your last chance, because it might be not in a dramatic end of the world way, but in the way that time actually works. You don't get to replay today. You don't get a refund on the chances you didn't take. Once a moment is gone, it's gone. And the people who win, whether in trading, business, or life, are those who finally stop postponing their power. Your last chance isn't a deadline. It's a decision. It's the moment you stop negotiating with your potential. You've probably told yourself stories in "I'm waiting for the right setup, the right feeling, the right time," but there is no right time. There's only now. The market won't adjust itself to your comfort zone, and neither will life. Every second you spend hesitating, doubting, or overanalyzing is another second stolen from the version of you that could have been unstoppable. You've had the knowledge for a while. You've read the books, watched the videos, studied the strategies. But the reason you're still stuck isn't lack of information. It's lack of commitment. You're still trying to hold onto your excuses while expecting extraordinary results. You want certainty before you act, but the truth is certainty comes after you act. Confidence is a result of repetition, not a requirement for it. Think about what it would mean if you actually treated this as your last chance. How would you show up? How much fear would you tolerate? How many trades would you let pass while you wait and see? None, because you'd know that hesitation has a cost, and the price is everything you say you want. This isn't about pressure. It's about presence. When you truly accept that you might not get another opportunity like this, your focus sharpens. You stop wasting energy on what ifs and start responding to what is. You stop seeking the perfect outcome and start executing on perfect process. You stop letting your past failures define you and start using them as fuel. Most people never reach that point. They keep thinking they have more time, that someday they'll get serious, but that someday never comes. The market keeps moving. The world keeps spinning, and their potential quietly fades into regret. So here's your choice. Right now, right here. Either you let this moment slip into the endless loop of next time, or you decide that this is it. Your last chance to act, to trust yourself, to step into the discipline you've been avoiding. The second you truly believe this is your last chance, you stop being casual about your future. You start becoming dangerous, because now there's nothing left to wait for. Treat every moment as if it's your last chance. When you start to see life through that lens, everything changes. Your priorities, your decisions, your energy, your presence. Most people live in delay. They assume tomorrow will look a lot like today. They think they'll have another opportunity to do the thing they're avoiding. But this kind of thinking kills momentum before it even begins. When you truly internalize the idea that this moment might be your last chance, you stop postponing your power. You stop pretending that time will wait for you to feel ready. You begin to live with a sharpness, an awareness that transforms how you think, how you act, and how you value the present. Every second of hesitation becomes visible. You notice how much time is wasted in mental loops, doubting, comparing, overanalyzing, waiting for the stars to align. But alignment is not a gift you receive. It's a state you create through decision and action. When you treat every moment as your last chance, you start to operate with decisiveness. You cut out the unnecessary, the distractions, the drama. You see clearly that energy spent on excuses is energy that could have been used to execute. You start to hold yourself accountable, not from guilt, but from clarity. Because once you see the reality of limited time, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice that most people live like they're immortal. They plan without urgency. They speak without intention. They dream without commitment. They think they have endless chances to make it right. But success doesn't belong to those who plan forever. It belongs to those who act while others wait. The edge isn't in talent, it's in timing. And the most powerful timing is now. When you move as if this moment will never come again, you become immune to laziness. You develop a respect for the opportunity sitting right in front of you. That respect shifts everything. It changes how you prepare, how you perform, and how you recover. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be fully present. When you're fully in the moment, hesitation disappears. You're not distracted by what might happen. You're focused on what's happening now. You stop trying to control outcomes and start mastering process, because when time becomes real, you realize that perfection is an illusion. The only thing that matters is momentum. Every decision becomes a reflection of how seriously you take your own potential. Do you treat your goals like casual interests? or like one final shot to make something great happen. Because when you operate from the mindset of last chance, you don't waste energy on hesitation. You study harder, you show up earlier, you execute cleaner. You stop half committing to your dreams and start demanding alignment between your words and your actions. You hold yourself to a higher standard, not because you want praise, but because you've realized that mediocrity is just another form of waiting. This perspective burns away the illusion of safety. It exposes the truth that comfort zones are just disguised cages. The more you wait, the smaller your world becomes when you treat every moment as your last fear starts losing its power. You stop trying to avoid risk because you finally understand that not acting is the biggest risk of all. Life isn't about avoiding losses. It's about learning how to play fully despite them. You can't win if you never step in. You can't grow if you never stretch. The pain of effort is temporary. The pain of regret lasts a lifetime. People often say they're waiting for the right feeling before they move, but emotion follows motion. The right feeling shows up once you act. Waiting to feel confident before you start is like waiting to get warm before you light the fire. When you act as if this is your last chance, you stop negotiating with your doubts. You act first and adjust later. That's how momentum is built, not from perfect plans, but from consistent presence. This mindset also removes the clutter from your life. When you recognize the scarcity of each moment, trivial things lose their grip on you. You stop overvaluing opinions, stop reacting to criticism, stop measuring yourself by someone else's timeline. Comparison fades because you understand that your race is yours alone, and every second spent watching someone else is a second stolen from your own path. You realize that the world doesn't reward the hesitant, it rewards the bold, the disciplined, the ones who move even when they're uncertain. There's a shift that happens when you stop assuming there's always more time. You become more patient but less tolerant of delay. You think deeper but move faster. You listen more carefully because you understand that each conversation, each opportunity, each day could be the last time you get to experience it. Gratitude stops being an abstract idea and becomes a living energy that drives your behavior. You start giving your best to the present moment, not because it's easy, but because it's real. When you live like this, your standards evolve. You stop accepting half effort from yourself. You stop using circumstances as excuses. You stop telling stories about why you can't and start finding reasons why you must. It's not about pressure. It's about alignment. Every time you act from that place, you strengthen your identity as someone who finishes, who follows through, who takes the shot when it matters most. And that's the thing. Every moment matters. The small decisions compound. The single choice to move forward instead of waiting creates a chain reaction that changes everything. When you treat each second as precious, you stop wasting them on distraction, gossip, procrastination, and self-doubt. You start investing them into clarity, skill, discipline, and presence. You realize that time isn't a resource you own. It's a gift you borrow, and it can be taken back at any moment. This awareness doesn't make you fearful. It makes you alive. It brings urgency to your purpose, depth to your actions, and intensity to your focus. It silences the noise of indecision and replaces it with conviction. Every breath becomes an opportunity to realign, to recommit, to move 1 inch closer to mastery. And when you start to operate from that level of presence, you don't just chase success, you embody it, because success isn't built in the future. It's built in the now. It's built in how you respond when the voice in your head says later. It's built in the courage to act before you're ready, to risk before you're sure, to trust yourself when there's no guarantee. And that trust can only exist when you've accepted that this right here, right now, might be your last chance. Stop waiting for the right time. Act now. The illusion of the right time is one of the most seductive lies the mind creates. It whispers that once things calm down, once you feel ready, once conditions align perfectly, then you'll move. But the truth is, that perfect moment never comes. There will always be something missing, something uncertain, something that doesn't quite fit. Waiting for the right time is another way of saying you're afraid to start. And the longer you wait, the more your mind builds resistance, the more your potential fades beneath hesitation. The market doesn't pause for your readiness, and neither does life. Opportunity doesn't arrive with a calendar alert. It shows up disguised as discomfort, as fear, as uncertainty. Those who move in spite of that are the ones who separate themselves from the crowd. The right time is a mirage. It looks real from a distance, but the closer you get, the further it moves. Every moment you postpone action, you strengthen the habit of delay. You convince yourself that preparation equals progress, but preparation without execution is still inaction. Thinking, planning, strategizing. None of it replaces the power of movement. You can't learn to swim by studying the waves. You can only learn by diving. in, by feeling the current, by adjusting in real time. Acting now doesn't mean acting recklessly. It means trusting your ability to adapt as you go. The mind craves certainty. It wants to see the whole path before taking the first step, but growth doesn't work that way. The path is revealed only through movement. Each step you take gives you information you could never gain by standing still. Waiting for clarity is how people stay stuck. The ones who create results understand that clarity is earned, not found. You act, you learn, you adjust. That cycle builds both skill and confidence. Confidence doesn't come before action. It's built through repetition, through showing yourself that you can handle the unknown. There's also a psychological trap in waiting. The more you wait, the heavier the moment becomes. You begin to believe that. The next move must be perfect because you've waited so long to make it, that perfectionism creates paralysis. You start overthinking every detail, fearing mistakes, wanting guarantees. But the truth is, progress is messy. Every successful person carries a trail of missteps behind them. They just didn't stop moving because of them. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't intelligence or luck. It's momentum. Momentum comes only from movement, and movement begins the moment you stop waiting for ideal conditions. When you act now, you shift the energy. You go from thinking to doing, from potential to performance. You give your goals something real to work with. The universe responds to momentum. It rewards motion with opportunities that static planning could never produce. Once you start moving, people, resources, and ideas begin aligning in ways you couldn't predict. But none of that can happen if you stay trapped in analysis. The longer you think about what could go wrong, the more reasons you'll find to stay still. The mind is a master at creating convincing excuses, and it will always find one more reason to delay. Action silences that voice because it forces your attention into the present. You may believe that waiting means you're being careful or strategic, but most of the time, waiting is fear disguised as logic. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of losing what you already have. But failure is only feedback, judgment fades, and loss is the price of growth. Every outcome, even the painful ones, moves you forward when you choose to learn from it. What truly keeps you stuck isn't failure. It's the refusal to face it. The right time won't make you fearless. Action will. Courage doesn't come from waiting for fear to disappear. It comes from moving despite it. The right time mindset also feeds procrastination. It gives you a false sense of control, a story that makes delay feel responsible. You tell yourself you're waiting for more knowledge, more stability, more confidence, but no amount of preparation can replace the lessons learned through direct experience. There's a level of understanding that only comes from being in the field, making decisions, taking risks, feeling the consequences and growing through them. You can't learn resilience from reading about it. You earn it through contact, through repetition, through reality. People who achieve mastery operate with a bias toward action. They don't confuse movement with motion. They understand that even a small step forward is more valuable than a perfect plan that never leaves their mind. They know that experience refines strategy faster than theory ever could. You can't improve what doesn't exist. And until you take action, your goals exist only as ideas. Acting now gives you data about yourself, your methods, your environment. It allows you to pivot intelligently instead of speculating endlessly. Every second spent waiting drains energy. It creates a silent friction between what you want and what you're doing. You feel the tension of potential unexpressed. That tension turns into frustration, self-doubt, even resentment. Acting now releases it. You stop thinking about what you should be doing and start doing it. The moment you move, you reclaim power from uncertainty. You show yourself that progress doesn't depend on perfect conditions. It depends on your willingness to begin. The world doesn't stop for hesitation. Opportunities fade, markets shift, timing changes, and while you wait, someone else is already acting, someone else is learning faster, failing faster, improving faster. The gap between you and them isn't talent, it's urgency. The difference between a dreamer and a doer is measured in seconds. The seconds between an idea and the decision to execute. When you act now, your entire mindset changes. You stop being reactive and start being proactive. You stop chasing the illusion of control and start mastering adaptability. Life becomes less about prediction and more about participation. You understand that real control isn't about avoiding uncertainty. It's about thriving within it. Each action you take strengthens that adaptability, making you faster, sharper, more resilient. The irony is that the right time only appears once you've already started, once you're in motion, once you've committed, once you've proven to yourself that you can take the first step. Then everything begins to align, not because the world changes, but because you do. Action organizes chaos. It creates clarity. It builds trust within yourself that no amount of waiting could ever achieve. The person who waits becomes a prisoner of possibility. The person who acts becomes the architect of reality. Every great achievement began with an imperfect start. Every success story is built on moments of uncertainty faced with courage. The people you admire didn't wait for everything to make sense. They acted when things were still unclear. They understood that growth demands discomfort, and that discomfort is a signal, not a stop sign. The more you embrace that, the faster you evolve. There's freedom in acting now, freedom from the endless loop of doubt, freedom from the weight of inaction, freedom from the false comfort of someday. Each time you move forward, despite uncertainty, you rewrite your identity. You stop being the person who waits and become the one who moves. And once you cross that line, everything in your world starts to shift in your favor. Commitment creates confidence, not the other way around. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel confident before they act. They believe confidence is some magical state that arrives first, a kind of inner permission slip that says, now you're ready. But that's not how it works. Confidence doesn't appear before commitment. It's the result of it. You don't wake up one day suddenly fearless, ready to execute with precision. You earn that state by stepping into the unknown repeatedly, by showing up even when your mind screams for certainty. Confidence is built brick by brick through the act of doing, through repetition, through proving to yourself that you can survive discomfort and still move forward. Commitment is the decision to show up regardless of how you feel. It's the anchor that keeps you grounded when doubt starts whispering in your ear. It's the promise you make to yourself that you'll keep moving even when motivation fades, even when results take longer than expected. Most people fail not because they lack talent, but because they lack commitment. They start strong but fold when the excitement fades. They wait to feel ready again, not realizing that readiness comes from consistency, not inspiration. When you commit, you eliminate the option of retreat. You stop asking if and start asking how. That shift in mindset is what creates confidence. Confidence built on commitment is unshakable because it's not based on external outcomes. It's not dependent on whether your last trade, your last project, or your last effort worked out. It's based on the evidence that you can keep showing up, that you can handle pressure, that you can adapt. You no longer need guarantees because you've proven to yourself that you can figure it out as you go. This kind of self-trust is powerful. It's not arrogance, it's earned certainty. It's the quiet assurance that no matter what happens, you'll keep executing. When people chase confidence, first, they're really chasing comfort. They want to feel good before they act. But comfort is the enemy of progress. Waiting for confidence before committing is like waiting for calm seas before learning to sail. It's never coming. The waves of uncertainty will always be there. Commitment teaches you how to ride them. The first few steps are awkward, uncomfortable, full of mistakes, but each repetition carves a new level of skill and awareness. The more you commit, the more your subconscious learns that action doesn't kill you, it strengthens you. That's how true confidence is built. Commitment also simplifies your life. When you're committed, indecision disappears. You don't waste time wondering whether you should or shouldn't. You just act. That clarity frees you from the noise of doubt. Most people burn energy in hesitation, trying to calculate every possible outcome before they move. Commitment cuts through that fog. It says, I'm in no matter what. And once that decision is made, your brain stops searching for exit routes and starts searching for solutions. The same energy that once fueled fear becomes fuel for execution. Confidence built through commitment doesn't need validation. You stop seeking approval from others because your evidence lives in your own actions. Every time you follow through on what you said you would do, you deposit a small amount of trust in yourself. Those deposits compound. Eventually, they turn into unshakable belief. You stop needing to convince yourself that you can because you already have. Every experience, every repetition, every small win reinforces that you're capable. That's why the most confident people rarely talk about their confidence. They don't need to. It's already wired into their identity. Commitment doesn't mean forcing yourself blindly. It means choosing to stay consistent through the emotional ups and downs. There will be days when progress feels invisible, when results refuse to show up. That's when commitment matters most, because confidence doesn't come from the days everything goes smoothly. It's forged in the moments you push through resistance. When you execute despite fear, despite fatigue, despite frustration, you're building a kind of internal resilience that no external circumstance can shake. The reason so many people struggle with consistency is because they confuse commitment with emotion. They think they need to feel good to take action, but commitment is the opposite. It's acting even when you don't feel like it. The gym goer who trains On tired days, the trader who sticks to their plan after a loss, the entrepreneur who keeps creating when no one's paying attention, these are the people who develop unbreakable confidence. They understand that commitment is the muscle that builds certainty. There's a feedback loop that forms when you commit. Action creates evidence. Evidence builds belief. Belief fuels more action. That loop, repeated enough times, makes you unstoppable. You no longer depend on luck or fleeting motivation. You rely on process, and process delivers consistency. That's why commitment always precedes confidence, because it gives you proof, not theory. You don't think you can handle it. You know. You can because you've done it before. The mind loves to trick you into waiting. It says you'll act once you feel more confident, once you've studied more, once you're ready. But that's a trap. Confidence doesn't precede mastery. It follows it. Every expert started uncertain. Every professional began as a beginner who decided to commit first and figure it out later. The difference between someone who succeeds and someone who stays stuck is simply who's willing to act without the guarantee of success. The more you practice that, the stronger your belief becomes. Commitment also eliminates the constant need for motivation. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. But commitment is structural. It's built into your habits, your schedule, your system. You don't need to feel like it. You just do it because that's who you are. Over time, that identity becomes your confidence. You trust yourself because you've seen yourself follow through repeatedly. You stop doubting your capabilities because your actions prove them every day. This mindset also changes how you view failure. When you're committed, failure stops being a threat. It becomes information. Each mistake teaches you something new. Each setback strengthens your emotional muscle. You start to see losses not as proof that you're incapable, but as part of the process that refines you. Confidence born from commitment isn't fragile. It thrives under pressure. You can face volatility, uncertainty, and loss without breaking because your foundation isn't built on emotion. It's built on evidence. The irony is that once you stop waiting for confidence and start committing, the confidence you were chasing begins to appear naturally. It doesn't come as a sudden burst. It grows quietly with every action you take. Every moment you choose discipline over doubt, you reinforce the belief that you can handle whatever comes next. You stop needing external motivation. Because you've built internal proof, you become the source of your own confidence. When you realize that commitment is the cause and confidence is the effect, everything changes. You stop wasting time trying to feel ready and start creating readiness through repetition. You start moving faster, deciding quicker, executing cleaner. You stop asking for signs and start creating results. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you earn by keeping your word to yourself again and again. Hesitation has a cost. Execution builds growth. Every time you hesitate, you pay a price. It's not always visible, but it's there. In lost momentum, lost opportunities, lost self-trust. Hesitation feels harmless in the moment, but it compounds quietly. Each second you spend overthinking, each decision you delay, weakens your ability to act with conviction. The cost isn't just external, it's internal. You start teaching your mind that fear gets to make the final call. You start reinforcing a habit of delay. Over time, hesitation becomes your default state. You begin to confuse thinking about action with taking action, and before you realize it, your goals are still ideas instead of realities. Execution, on the other hand, builds growth, not because it guarantees success, but because it guarantees learning. Every action, even an imperfect one, gives you feedback. You gain data, perspective, and experience that hesitation will never provide. The people who grow the fastest aren't those who plan endlessly. They're the ones who execute relentlessly. They understand that movement creates clarity, that progress doesn't come from avoiding mistakes, but from making them and adjusting fast. Execution is the only real antidote to fear, because fear feeds on inaction. Once you move, fear loses its grip. Hesitation feels safe. It feels logical. You tell yourself you're just waiting for the right information, the right timing, the right feeling. But in truth, hesitation is comfort disguised as wisdom. It's the mind's way of protecting you from uncertainty. The problem is that growth lives on the other side of that uncertainty. Every time you hesitate, you delay that expansion, you give your comfort zone more power than your potential, and the longer you hesitate, the harder it becomes to move. Inaction breeds inertia, and inertia makes you question yourself even more. The cycle tightens, the cost rises. In markets, in business, in life, hesitation doesn't just cost you opportunity, it costs you edge. Momentum is everything. Once you lose it, getting it back requires 10 times the energy. A trader who hesitates to pull the trigger on a setup they've already analyzed misses the trade, not because the market was wrong, but because they were The pattern was there, the logic was sound, but hesitation overruled execution. And what does that hesitation teach the mind? That it can't be trusted under pressure. Over time, this erodes confidence. You start doubting not just your analysis, but your instincts. You begin playing small, avoiding moves that could have built your growth. Execution reverses that pattern. When you execute, you prove to yourself that you can act decisively. Each decision strengthens your self-image as a person of action, even if the outcome isn't perfect. The act of execution itself builds trust. You start to believe that you can handle whatever comes next. That belief compounds with every move you make. Eventually, you stop fearing the outcome because you're too focused on the process. Growth becomes your baseline, not your goal. The real difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't intelligence, timing, or even luck. It's speed of implementation. Successful people make decisions faster, test ideas sooner, and adapt quicker. They understand that hesitation kills flow, and flow is everything. When you hesitate, you interrupt your rhythm. You break the chain between intention and action. Once that link weakens, doubt rushes in to fill the space. The mind starts asking questions that don't matter. What if I'm wrong? What if it fails? What if I'm not ready? Each question pulls you further away from execution. The longer you wait, the louder those doubts become. Growth doesn't come from knowing, it comes from doing. You can study for years and still not grow, because knowledge without execution is potential energy without release. It doesn't move you forward until you apply it. Execution transforms information into transformation. Every time you act, you're taking theory and turning it into reality. That's how you grow, not by waiting for perfect knowledge, but by using what you know now and refining as you go. Hesitation also steals time, and time is the most unforgiving currency there is. You can recover money, status, or opportunity, but you can't recover lost moments. Every hesitation becomes a delay in the compounding of experience. The sooner you act, the sooner you start learning. The sooner you learn, the sooner you adapt. Growth is exponential for those who move quickly, but linear for those who hesitate. That's why some people seem to accelerate faster than others. They execute more often, they collect more feedback, they evolve faster. Execution requires courage, but not the kind people imagine. It's not about fearlessness, it's about acting despite fear. The fear never fully goes away. You just stop negotiating with it. You understand that hesitation amplifies fear, while execution silences it. The moment you move, your brain shifts from prediction to participation. You're no longer imagining failure, you're managing reality. And reality is always easier to deal with than imagination because it's concrete. You can measure it, analyze it, improve it. Hesitation keeps you trapped in imagination, where fear has unlimited power. Execution brings you back to the present, where growth lives. Another cost of hesitation is missed timing. Life operates in windows, moments, where action creates disproportionate impact. These windows don't last forever. A decision delayed is often a decision denied. The market moves, opportunities fade, people change, energy shifts. Waiting until everything feels perfect means missing the exact moment perfection was possible. Execution doesn't guarantee success, but hesitation guarantees stagnation. There's also a psychological cost. Each time you hesitate, you teach your brain that inaction is safer than action. This rewires your self-identity. You stop seeing yourself as a person who acts and start seeing yourself as someone who wants to act. You become a collector of intentions instead of results. That identity shift is dangerous because it feels comfortable. You can still talk about your goals, plan them, visualize them, but deep down you know you're not living them. And that quiet awareness eats away at confidence more than failure ever could. Execution rebuilds that identity. Every time you take action, you're voting for the version of yourself that's decisive, disciplined, and capable. Even when the outcome isn't perfect, the act of following through realigns your mind with strength. You start recognizing yourself as someone who moves, who takes ownership, who builds rather than waits. Over time, that identity becomes your new baseline. You stop asking, "Can I?" and start saying, "I will." Growth through execution also creates real self-awareness. You stop relying on assumptions and start collecting truth. Action exposes what's working and what's not. It gives you tangible results to study, to adjust, to build from. Without execution, your ideas remain theories that can't be measured. You may think you're learning, but you're just circling the same mental patterns. Real growth demands exposure. Exposure to feedback, to resistance, to uncertainty. Execution gives you that exposure. The paradox is that hesitation feels smart because it's cautious, but it's actually reckless. It wastes your most valuable resource, time. It allows opportunities to decay while convincing you that you're being strategic. Execution might bring mistakes, but hesitation guarantees regret. Mistakes can be corrected, regret cannot, and the longer you hesitate, the more difficult it becomes to start. Momentum lost is harder to rebuild than it was to create in the first place. Execution doesn't mean acting blindly, it means acting deliberately, with the awareness that growth comes through motion. You don't need the entire plan, you just need the next step. You take it, observe what happens, and use that data to inform the next move. That's how growth compounds. Small, consistent executions beat massive delayed actions every time. Consistency builds rhythm, and rhythm builds results. Hesitation destroys that rhythm. It resets your energy, breaks your flow, and turns movement into mental noise. Execution restores it. The moment you take action, your focus sharpens, your energy aligns, you stop thinking in circles and start thinking in solutions. Each move forward strengthens your ability to act again. That's how growth builds, not in sudden leaps, but in the steady rhythm of execution. Presence, not perfection, leads to progress. The pursuit of perfection is one of the most effective ways to sabotage your own growth. It disguises itself as ambition, as a desire to get things right, but in reality, it's fear wearing a polished mask. The fear of being judged, the fear of failing, the fear of not being enough. Perfection promises control, but it delivers paralysis. You wait until everything looks flawless before you move, and because nothing ever does, you end up trapped in preparation. Progress, on the other hand, comes from presence, the ability to be fully engaged with what is happening right now, not what could happen later. Presence keeps you in motion, perfection keeps you stuck. Presence means accepting imperfection as part of the process. It means understanding that growth doesn't require you to have everything figured out. It only requires your full attention. When you are truly present, you stop worrying about outcomes and start focusing on execution. You're not distracted by what went wrong before or what might go wrong next. You're anchored in the current moment. The only place where real progress can happen. Every mistake becomes feedback. Every challenge becomes training. Every small success becomes momentum. Presence allows you to learn faster because it keeps you connected to reality instead of fantasy. Perfection is rooted in comparison. It's the habit of measuring your progress against an ideal that doesn't exist. You keep chasing the flawless version of yourself, your work, your results, but that version keeps moving just out of reach. The more you chase it, the further it feels. You never feel ready, never satisfied, never enough. Presence ends that loop because it doesn't compare, it observes, it asks, what's real right now? What can I do with That shift in focus transforms performance. It moves you from frustration to flow, from paralysis to precision. When you're present, you're not trying to avoid mistakes. You're learning from them as they happen. You don't waste energy on perfectionism because you understand that mastery is a process of refinement, not avoidance. The best performers in any field aren't perfect. They're present. They know how to adjust moment by moment, to stay mentally flexible, to adapt to change without losing focus. That's what makes them consistent. Presence builds adaptability, and adaptability builds longevity. Perfection, by contrast, creates fragility. The moment reality doesn't match your expectations, you break. Presence also deepens your awareness. When you're fully engaged, you notice things others miss, the subtle details, the shifts in emotion, the signals of opportunity. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intelligently. You develop a kind of calm alertness that keeps you grounded even in chaos. That's what separates disciplined action from reckless movement. It's not about speed, it's about attention. The more present you are, the more efficient your actions become. You don't waste effort chasing illusions or replaying past mistakes. You deal with what's in front of you. The obsession with perfection often comes from ego. The need to look competent, to appear flawless, to avoid vulnerability. But progress doesn't care about appearances, it cares about consistency. The ego wants validation. Presence wants growth. When you let go of perfection, you also let go of the need to prove yourself. You no longer measure your worth by outcomes, but by effort. You stop judging yourself for every misstep and start valuing yourself for showing up. That shift creates emotional freedom, the kind that allows you to experiment, to take risks, to stretch beyond comfort. Presence is power because it connects you with reality. It brings you into direct contact with your environment, your emotions, your performance. When you're truly present, fear has no space to control you because fear lives in the future. Regret lives in the past. Only presence lives in the now. The more you practice being here, the quieter your internal noise becomes. The doubts, the overthinking, the endless analysis, they all lose strength because your attention isn't feeding them. You're too busy doing the work. Perfectionists often confuse progress with flawlessness. They think they have to get everything right to move forward. But progress is messy. It's non-linear. Some days you'll move fast, others you'll struggle just to take a step. That's how growth works. It's not smooth, it's layered. Each mistake teaches you something. Each challenge exposes a new level of discipline. Each failure forces you to improve your awareness. When you're present, you start appreciating that process instead of fighting it. You stop labeling moments as good or bad and start seeing them as necessary. Presence also teaches patience. When you're focused on perfection, impatience dominates. You want results now, and anything less feels like failure. Presence dissolves that urgency. It reminds you that real progress takes time, repetition, and endurance. You learn to trust the process instead of forcing it. You realize that slow growth isn't weakness. It's foundation building. Every moment you stay present through discomfort, you strengthen your emotional structure. That's the kind of progress that lasts. In trading, business, or any high-pressure environment, perfection is a liability. It blinds you to what's actually happening. You become so focused on avoiding mistakes that you miss the signals unfolding in front of you. Presence, however, keeps you in tune with the market, with the flow of events, with your own reactions. It gives you feedback in real time. You start responding instead of predicting. You act based on evidence, not emotion. That's how you gain precision, without paralysis. Presence also builds self-trust. When you're here, engaged, focused, you start realizing that you already have what it takes to handle this moment. You don't need to know the future, you just need to stay present with what's in front of you. That trust grows each time you choose awareness over anxiety. Confidence built from presence is real because it's grounded in experience, not imagination. You're no longer living in what ifs, you're living in what is. Perfectionism drains creativity. It kills experimentation because it tells you there's one right way to do things. Presence fuels creativity because it keeps you curious. You're not trying to control every outcome. You're exploring possibilities. You start seeing problems as puzzles, not threats. You become more flexible, more open, more resourceful. Creativity thrives in imperfection because imperfection is where innovation begins. Progress born from presence also creates peace of mind. You stop chasing the illusion of being done. You accept that there will always be another level, another challenge, another opportunity to refine. That acceptance removes the weight of pressure. You stop trying to arrive and start learning how to flow. Each moment becomes its own destination. You begin to see progress, not as a finish line, but as a rhythm, an ongoing state of becoming. Perfection narrows your vision. Presence expands it. When you stop demanding flawlessness, you see opportunities you would have overlooked. You find lessons in failure, patterns in pain, clarity in confusion. You become a better observer, a better learner, a better performer. Progress doesn't come from eliminating mistakes. It comes from engaging fully with them. Presence allows you to do that without judgment. The paradox is that when you finally stop striving for perfection and start focusing on presence, you perform better. You become sharper, calmer, and more consistent. Mistakes decrease not because you're trying to avoid them, but because your awareness prevents them. You start trusting the flow of your process instead of fighting against it. You begin to understand that mastery is not about controlling every variable. It's about being fully conscious within every variable. Presence, not perfection, is what builds mastery. It's what transforms practice into skill, struggle into insight, and effort into evolution. It's the foundation of real progress, the kind that doesn't vanish when conditions change. When you are present, every experience becomes a teacher. Every moment an opportunity, every action a step forward.